Greetings, my paranormal patrons. This is the Monsters Feminine Podcast Patreon, a space where horrible humans talk a little more about horror. My name is Zeba, and I'm joined by my Coven,
Mila,
Louisa,
and Saga.
And this is our bonus episode for our Werewolves month. Thank you so much to our May Queen pledges on Patreon for supporting us.
This episode, we're going to be talking about the 2006 film, The Twilight Saga: New Moon, directed by Weitz.
how would you explain New Moon to like somebody who had no idea what Twilight was like?
Okay, a perfectly normal reaction to a breakup.
Yeah.
I have sat there for longer than Bella sat there for less, I will say.
I agree. It was so damaging to my interpretation of how I should get over someone.
Which is to not get over them.
Yeah.
This may be my favorite Twilight soundtrack. The first one is excellent. This one is also excellent. The other two, not as great, but the first two, just they put me in such a space. They
catapult me back in time.
I'm transported by them.
I still listen to that song Rosalind all the time.
There was this tweet I saw that was once a song was in Shrek, it's forever known as a Shrek song. Similar to Twilight. Once a song plays, I'm I can tell you exactly what scene in Twilight franchise that's from, what they're doing, etc., etc.
I used to listen to the Rob Pattinson song that was a bonus song from the first movie, Let Me Sign, religiously. It was not even that great. I also had a poster of Taylor Lautner with the jean shorts in my room.
Not jean shorts.
Team Jacob.
I was, yeah. And the funny thing about that is I used to really be riding hard for Rob Pattinson. This is about to be a tale of the young Taya. When I was in 5th grade and I saw Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for the first time, I was so obsessed with Rob Pattinson. He had absolutely no filmography at the time. Sorry, Rob. I used to literally try to put everyone on Rob Pattinson. On the playground, I'd be we should play Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I would only want to be Cedric Diggory every single time.
You wanted to be him.
And then when Twilight came out, I was oh my gosh, my man finally secured the bag and he has a long-term role. And then it came out and I was actually, never mind. Scrap that. I actually Taylor Lautner, and I had been really into him for multiple years with no content or material.
So is New Moon your favorite movie because it has the most Jacob in it?
That's the only one that I went to see on premiere day and waited outside because it had the most Jacob.
I feel this one, more than any of the other 4, has the most fan service. There are shots that I can remember people screaming in the theater. The first shot where you see Edward coming out of the woods into the parking lot. The bitches were screaming. All the Cullens interactions sounded like fan fiction, interactions. There's this scene where Jacob, has his shirt off for the first time, where, his hair isn't long anymore. The girls were screaming. I remember it. And I feel now in retrospect, not in a theater full of screaming girls, I'm this is really pointless. There's a lot of really pointless, throwaway lines in there, but they're the best ones.
New Moon is always regarded as the least favorite in people's Twilight timelines. I always quite liked New Moon, but that's because for a different reason, Taya. It's a lot of Bella, and I was gay, so...
She's so miserable, though. Don't you like Breaking Dawn Bella when she's hot and transformed?
No, I find Breaking Dawn just irritating because then she becomes a mother and then it's all about Renesmee. I'm sorry. I don't want to... I love a MILF, however. She changes in essence. And I preferred it when it was about her and her relationships, not when it's about this weird doll human thing.
I went to one of my friends' youth groups. They used Twilight to talk about waiting to marriage.
That might work.
I was oh, maybe Stephenie Meyer is very Christian, and maybe that is why they put that in there.
There was no reason for them to wait. I mean, besides that she should have been a vampire before they did it. I don't know why they did it when she was human. That was stupid.
Because she wanted one last human experience. I don't know. It was tenuous. What do you think of New Moon, Mila?
It's probably my least favorite. The most unrelatable thing in the world. Get the fuck over it, girl. Come on.
Just because you don't relate, I feel attacked.
And the way she's wakes up screaming. What the fuck?
It's a bit much.
I would have definitely thought she needed an exorcism at that point.
Charlie was so sweet about it. You know what thing I hate most in film, and this is not just Twilight, but all films. I think it's so lazy when people do the whole hallucination to like show that somebody is missing or thinking about somebody. Like, it happens so often. I feel like there'll be like a dead wife and like he'll hallucinate seeing it. Like, no one ever, like, you don't hallucinate. I feel like that's such a lazy way to portray like a character's emotion. And I will say this is like a funny little depiction of that, where it's like she'll just see him and like starts doing dangerous things to see him. Like, the girl lost her damn mind.
A great way to describe this film is a psychodrama about a 100-year-old man grooming a teenager.
I can understand why Twilight spun so many fan fictions based off of this movie alone. Like, in the first one, I was like, I don't get it. But in this one, they really sell the love.
The love triangle. Here's the thing. They're both bad options. The reason Bella was never going to be into Jacob is like, I forgot that he was like 2 years younger than her or something. With that in mind, watching it, I'm like, yeah, he's just this annoying little shit who won't take no for an answer. Like, he just like is insistent that she's in love with him. And then in Eclipse, he like tricks her into kissing him, which like is its own thing. But he was like that conniving and that weaselly the whole time, where he just like, I don't know, she would have settled for him. Like, if Edward hadn't come back, she would have been settling if she had picked him at all. I don't think she would have ended up with him even if Edward hadn't come back.
I think that's why it's a bad love triangle. There was never really a chance for them. Like, a good love triangle, you kind of root for both. Obviously, she could just have them both.
There are several scenes in this movie where it's like, they might as well just been a throuple.
Well, that would have involved the queering of Jacob and Edward. I'm not against it.
It's just the queering of Jacob. Edward has to be queer. He's too old.
Too old.
He has to have tried it.
But what do you think of the
Volturi?
werewolf?
I'm glad you asked. Oh, okay.
No, what do you think of the theme?
This movie is rough. Stephanie Meyer, no offense, girl, you really did create every problematic fan fiction known to man that has been turned into a movie. 365 Days, 50 Shades, After, you name them, they were somehow inspired by Twilight. Besides that, the problem that this has is that Jacob, as a man of color, is literally willing to let all of his friends die to save this random white girl who does not love him. And they really use nativeness in a borderline problematic way.
I was not borderline. They're literally dehumanized.
Also, to make matters worse, like the defeminization of Leah in comparison to like the white women was a fucking mess just because she was a werewolf, and they kind of make it seem like none of the guys in the pack like see her romantically because she's a werewolf, but they all see Bella as like this fragile thing to protect, which so many question marks on why that was a writing choice. There's the whole thing where it's like Sam's fiance, where he attacks her when he's a werewolf and she's like permanently scarred, and they're like, but he didn't know because he was in werewolf form. I don't know. These films, I can see why they spun such problematic fan fiction turned movies with different characters, because it's so much of like obsession equals love. Love can be violent, but it's just an accident. Even like when Bella and Edward later have sex in the film, it's like the headboard is broken in half. She's covered in bruises, but it was great because she enjoyed it. Like, I do see how this could be very damaging for young people.
I, for one, think I developed very appropriately.
I feel like people who are Team Jacob probably made it out of adolescence with less bruising than the rest of us, though. And I'm saying that as not Team Jacob.
I want to circle back to that, what you just said, Taya, because there was a blog, a Shannon Brownlee for the Dalhousie Uni blog, said that this film, like, may be progressive in the sense that the Indigenous characters are played by Indigenous actors, with the exception of Taylor Lautner. And the other stereotypes, such as the 4Ds, are excluded from this film. And you don't see people wearing beads, braids, buckskin. Like, it's not like the typical lazy and like on the nose kind of racist depiction of Indigenous people. However, it goes into a lot of problematic tropes, e.g., and this person talks about the magical element is a problematic thing to do. For example, this person quotes Becky Little in her article, Native Americans to J.K. Rowling were not magical. And she says, Indigenous people are fighting every day for the protection of our sacred sites from being destroyed. If Indigenous spirituality becomes conflated with fantasy magic, how can we expect lawmakers and the public to be allies in the protection of these spaces? And then The genre of fiction and fantasy is extremely popular with younger readers, but fantasy goes hand in hand with fiction, and depicting an ethnicity, race, religion, or gender as fictional is inappropriate.
Didn't she base it off of a real tribe too? Like she just like picked a tribe in Washington.
So it's based off of the Quillette tribe in Washington. And like I said, they're not portrayed as like dancing, drumming, drunk, dead. I'm quoting this person. Equally, they're associated with like magical powers. And Shannon says, while New Moon is said to portray an accurate image of Indigenous people, the depiction of the Quillette tribe as magical is hardly authentic or helpful to the Indigenous community. Whether intentional or not, this film promotes the othering of Indigenous people as mysterious outsiders in contemporary society. And then, as you were saying, Taya, there's what this person calls the romantic savage trope. And basically, like, as we see, Jacob is intense, like, with his affections to Bella, borderline harassment, as you mentioned, Zeba. In fact, it is a harassment when he tries her to kiss him. But yeah, and all the tribes are sexualized with their shirts off, like, constantly. And she says, in New Moon, the romantic savage trope is amplified by the female gaze as it objectifies the Indigenous characters and romanticizes them as beautiful lost souls that are one with nature. And then also, as he touched on, Taya, there's that noble savage trope, which is, while the Quillettes are not bloodthirsty or evil, they are portrayed as reckless beasts with anger issues. So, like, all in all, harmful towards Indigenous representation. Only progressive in that they're there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think besides them being animals, which like anytime a person of color is like a thing that transforms into an animal and like whatever, that's annoying and bad and wrong. But also that they are like portrayed as like, even when they are not wolves, as like more angry than other people is like a very bizarre choice and completely unnecessary. Like they could just transform into wolves with the moon. They could transform when there's vampires nearby or other danger. They could transform whenever they want to on command. And it's weird that it's like this Hulk-like thing.
Yeah. It's even worse that it feels like Bella can almost command Jacob. They may have even said this in the book at some point where he's like her puppy. Pretty fucked up.
Alice says, I'll come in as soon as you take the dog out and stuff like that. Like, that's another dynamic, is that you have the Cullens as this symbol of like white ideal, I think, family or something, where...
Or something.
Well, I don't think they're the ideal, but like, I'm saying that you have this family which represents a white ideal, and then they're so hostile towards this group of Indigenous people.
And they never categorize Bella as, when they interact with her, like the other wolves, so they never categorize her as like the white girl. They're always like, oh, she runs with vampires. I'm like, say it with your chest. Like, she's the white girl who hangs out with Jacob.
In the books, they describe Bella to be quite plain over and over. Obviously, Kristen Stewart's Kristen Stewart, so she's very pretty. But we're also meant to believe that, like, every single man who encounters her is, like, attracted to her. Even, like, the wolves. The other people who Jacob hangs out with say she's pretty and stuff all the time. And it just feels like, as the singular white woman in their vicinity, making her the most sought-after object of desire, like, directly comparing her and Leah's character.
Let's talk more about the werewolf lore. Like, it's weird that it's associated with anger. I do like that they don't go the route of a hybrid. I like that it's just full wolf. Like, you're just a big wolf. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they're not werewolves. They're shapeshifters, but they're werewolves for this theme. And also they call them werewolves, like, through the whole thing, until the end where they're like, actually, it implies that they could be other animals, which they just choose not to. What is that about?
What animal would you be if you could shapeshift?
Probably something stupid that would get itself hurt, like a deer, or one of those little white dogs with the crusties on its eyes.
Right. You just shapeshift into Rue, Taya?
No, I said that's exactly what I was going to say. She's cute as fuck, and she's my baby. I would definitely choose Rue. She's great. She lives in a nice house with air conditioning. She is spayed, so no dog is coming to hump up on her. She got meals promised, and clothes, and plenty of love. If I was like an animal in the wild, there'd be a risk that I'd just get pregnant from some dude who was in heat. Like, no.
Mila, what would you shapeshift to?
I'd like to be a whale.
Aw, that's nice. But how are you gonna do that? Like, I'm picturing that aquamarine show where water would touch them and then they'd be screwed. If you turn into a whole ass whale...
I'd just go into the ocean.
Yeah, but you have to go so deep.
You have to go so deep. You get beached.
Yeah, but I'd go for like weeks at a time.
Like a cruise.
I would love to be a penguin, but also I wouldn't want to be eaten by like a sea lion.
That's what I mean. You have to pick something at the top of the food chain.
It'd be really fun to be in the Arctic, have on like a little tuxedo, hang out with my friends, do some happy feet dances. It would be fun. Maybe a polar bear. There's no one who really is trying to eat you, but you're also dying because of climate change.
Taya stays thinking about how polar bears are undefeated.
Penguins are very, sexually deviant.
What?
Yeah. They, gang rape each other.
What?
Don't ruin them for me.
Wait.
Don't do this to me.
I missed that part of Happy Feet.
Thank you for listening to The Monstrous Feminine. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, SoundCloud, and Spotify at The Monstrous Feminine Podcast, and on Twitter at The MonFemPod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on TikTok at The Monstrous Feminine Pod for podcast clips and more fun. Brooms up, witches out.